So to all those tuning in, welcome to another segment of COVID Story. I'm your host, Josh. COVID Story is the Parramatta YCW video series where we interview real young people whose lives were impacted by the coronavirus. The aim is to collect stories to show how the pandemic affected young people's reality. At the time of filming of this interview, there were only 9 new COVID cases in Sydney. Meanwhile, Melbourne is still in stage 4 restrictions. Today, I'm joined by my friend Jason. So, Jason, I'll just start off with the first question. Can you introduce yourself? What do you do for a living, and what's your living situation?
Sure. My name is Jason, obviously, and
Yeah.
I work as a general practitioner in
Yep.
Blacktown, so out west. I
Mhm.
have a few other jobs here and there as a part-time casual thing. So I'm also part of a management team now for
Wow.
a group of practices. I do a little bit of work for the local health organization, writing guidelines for other GPs. Yeah, so tits and tats here and there. So, and my current living situation, I moved back home right before the pandemic hit. So, still currently
Mhm.
living at home. Uh, Unfortunately, I was planning to move out, but then lockdown occurred. So that's what happened.
Oh, damn, man. Yeah. And I guess that's a a similar story that you know that a lot of young people sort of express. A lot of the pandemic has really impacted a lot of people's plans, especially moving out plans and traveling plans.
Yeah, that's
So I'll
definitely
go
true.
ask. Mm. So second question: how has the coronavirus impacted you? How has it changed life in both positive and negative ways?
I guess it's impacted me in a way, I guess, from a work perspective. Uh,
Hmm.
it's definitely decreased the amount of patients that I'm seeing on a regular basis,
Hmm.
given that I was freshly kind of graduated from becoming a fellow GP
Mm.
quite recently. I don't have that patient load or base that a experienced GP would have. So therefore,
Mm.
I don't see as many patients as I normally would. I get paid
Mm.
on a patient to patient basis. So how many patients
Yeah.
I see is how much money I make.
Hmm.
So from that perspective, it's taken a bit of a hit.
Mm.
However, I was lucky enough to have some opportunities at Kildare Road Medical Center where
Yeah.
I'm working.
Hmm.
So actually, I think during the right after the pandemic,
Yeah.
it was right after lockdown. Sorry, after lockdown ended, I actually ended up probably making more than what I would usually make.
Really?
Yeah, but prior to lockdown, so during lockdown, I probably wasn't earning that much. I
Oh,
think I was
okay.
just
Yeah.
using that time just to kind of take it easy and relax because I just finished
Mm.
my exams at the end of the year
Mm.
before. So I just took it easy for a couple of months. But then
Mm.
afterwards, I think right after lockdown finished, I think there was a lot of opportunities at the medical center that I was working at, and that
Hmm.
helped kind of help my income a lot.
Oh, that's.
Yeah, and just been getting involved in different projects, which I
Mm.
guess I don't know whether COVID. I guess in some ways, COVID has impacted it negatively because I
Yeah.
was planning to open up my own practice in June
Oh,
uh,
wow.
this year. Yeah,
Hmm.
actually, it was meant to open, I think, earlier than that. I think around
Wow. Okay.
March or February, and it got pushed back it got pushed back, and then it got pushed back again. Um, so again, I was meant to open in September, but it
Hmm.
got pushed back to next year, March.
Oh, dang, man.
So yeah, but that's okay.
Mm. Yeah. Again, as I said before, uh, COVID has, sort of put a pause um, on everyone's life plans. Yeah.
Mm,
But
yeah.
I guess
But
it's good in a
yeah.
way that, you got involved in other projects as well.
Yeah, I think the beauty of it all is I think if I opened my practice straight away, I wouldn't have been involved in other projects. So it's
Mm,
given me more time to focus on other things.
yeah.
So whenever I guess something, major happens in your life, there's always other doors that open up. So just have to look out
Mm,
for those things.
yeah, of course. No, I guess yeah, what you say is true. Always like, one door closes, a few more doors open.
Yeah,
All right,
exactly.
so ask the next question. I think you've already touched on maybe some or most of this question, but how has coronavirus impacted your workplace?
Uh, so from a workplace perspective, again, it's changed the way we work a lot.
Hmm.
So we're definitely taking more precaution with
Yeah.
when we see clients or patients.
Hmm.
Um, Hygiene is a big thing now. Um, yeah, we're just very cautious because if the workplace is exposed to COVID, obviously everyone will have to self isolate, and everyone has to take
Mm,
2 weeks off work, which
yeah,
again will impact the business as well. So
of course.
it's yeah. So I guess everyone's just playing it very cautiously. I know a few
Mm,
other doctors who got sick with other viruses. Luckily
oh.
it wasn't COVID, but
Hmm.
obviously they showed some symptoms and they had to go home and they couldn't work for a couple of days. Um,
Mm,
and given that we're paid on a you know per patient basis,
yep.
it definitely takes a hit on your
Mm,
income because we don't get sick leave. So
mm,
those things have made us very cautious with how we handle patients and see patients. So just taking
mm,
extra precautions.
definitely. And I was wondering, could you, I guess, go more in depth about the type of precautions you're taking in your workplace?
Yeah, so obviously we screen everyone at the door
Yep.
before they come in to make sure they don't have any symptoms
Hmm.
of potentially coronavirus.
Hmm.
Um, so we ask about cough, fever, travel history, things like
Hmm.
that before they're even allowed into the clinic.
Hmm.
Um, Inside the clinic, obviously we have a lot of hand sanitizer available. We have
Hmm.
social distancing between in the waiting area. Um, and as doctors, we're encouraged to wear masks when we do see patients just in
Hmm.
case, because obviously coronavirus, you can still have it without any symptoms and you can still pass it
Mm,
on. Um,
mm,
so therefore, I've heard of a few stories from other doctors that have gotten sick in Melbourne when
yeah.
they've sat and spoke to a patient, but the
Mm,
patient wasn't symptomatic at the time, and
wow.
then the doctor subsequently got sick.
Mm,
So yeah, so those precautions we try to uh, be as careful as we can, but sometimes
mm.
uh, it doesn't always work out.
Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, and it's a good thing that your workplace has um, you know um, implemented those procedures. I know around the world, COVID is almost spreading like wildfire.
Mm,
One of my friends' relatives, they own a pharmacy in Colombia, and
mm,
they had a they had a customer come in there. No, they had customers come in there, no symptoms whatsoever, but one of the workers got sick, and yeah, eventually everyone in the working in the pharmacy got coronavirus.
oh, geez,
Yeah,
that's not good.
pretty crazy. I
Yeah.
was also going to ask Jason, uh, d- do you also offer telehealth
Yes.
in your GP
So
practice?
yeah. So telehealth, I think, is one of the good things that might has come out of this pandemic.
Hmm.
I think it was on the horizon,
Mm,
but coronavirus has kind of pushed it and made it, I guess, develop faster. So it's
mm,
good in some ways.
yeah.
There's obviously limitations to telehealth as well. So just have to be mindful what you should do over telehealth versus what you shouldn't do over telehealth.
Mm,
So there's always going to be, I think, a component of both in healthcare.
Yep.
And I think telehealth definitely helps certain groups of patients more than others. Also helps with convenience, given how busy we are in our lives. For simple things, they can usually be managed over telehealth. So I think that's a good thing that has come out of it, and I think
Yep.
that's something that will continue to develop and improve into the future.
No, definitely. Yeah, and I have as a fellow health professional, I can confirm that coronavirus has hastened the move to telehealth. Where I work at now, in pulmonary rehab, we've started offering over the phone pulmonary rehab, which is new to all our staff.
Yeah, but definitely, I guess it definitely helps those patients, because the last thing you want is those patients needing pulmonary rehab to get coronavirus,
Yeah, of
because they're
course,
extremely high risk. So
definitely.
it wouldn't end up well for them at all. So it's good that whatever can be done over telehealth, it's a better idea to get it done over telehealth.
Of course, of course. All right, so I'll move on. Okay. Okay. So, what worries you about the progression of the pandemic? I know that in Sydney, especially between the months of, I guess, June to maybe August, there was quite a big scare of a spike of cases in Sydney. We know that in Melbourne, over the last couple of months, they've seen the resurgence of another wave of coronavirus. What are your thoughts on that, Jason?
I guess my thoughts, initially I was quite concerned that we would enter another lockdown, but actually
Yeah.
quite surprised that we managed to avoid it, which is very
Mm.
good. And that's I have to take my hats off to the public health staff that have been doing the contact tracing. So they've done a very good
Yeah.
job in managing the spread of corona in New South Wales. Quite impressed by that. I guess what worries me, to be completely honest, I mean, it's more so the people around me that worries me. I'm not too worried about myself per se, but like my family and my friends. So the ones that are more vulnerable to coronavirus, I think that's what worries me. Them getting sick and the potential that they might not recover. I think that's the most worrisome thing for me. But from my own personal perspective, ideally, I wouldn't like to enter another lockdown. But
Of
you know,
course.
if it happens, it happens. I mean, yeah,
Mm.
I'm not too worried about that. I think I'm
Mm.
managing pretty well. Otherwise, I've kept myself busy with things to do. So
Yeah.
yeah, if it comes to that, fingers crossed it doesn't, and touch wood it doesn't. But if it does, then
Mm.
I'm not too concerned about that.
Mm. I guess as a fellow health professional, I think I can say for the both of us that we're both fortunate that we work in health,
Mm.
because definitely in other industries like retail or hospitality, another lockdown would be devastating for those workers. But me working as a nurse, I was always, I guess I was, there's always that assurance that there'll always be a workplace for me to go to.
Yes,
Um,
yes, I totally agree.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think from being a health professional definitely helps in these circumstances. Obviously, there are risks involved when we do attend work if there is an outbreak. Um, I guess that's the only really downside to it all. But otherwise,
Definitely.
in terms of job security, yeah, I definitely would be complaining about that.
Yeah.
And I do feel quite bad for those in other industries that they are suffering a lot more than health.
Mm,
So
mm, yeah. And it's a good point that you make too, Jason, that you know, because we both work in health, you know, there is a greater risk of us contracting coronavirus. Um, I remember hearing a story in Melbourne how nurses, I think it was in an ICU, they were looking after coronavirus patients, and it turned out that all the nurses on the shift had gotten coronavirus, not because I don't think it was because they were not adhering to PPE, but rather
mm,
because they transmitted it to each other during their break in the tea room. And yeah, that's pretty crazy.
yeah, yeah. I think I was looking at the statistics, and I think a lot of the health practitioners that actually got sick, they got sick from their workplace. I think they traced it
Mm,
back to their workplace rather than getting sick from outside. So there is that inherent risk when we do go to work, and
mm,
yeah, it's unfortunate that way, but you know it's something that you can't see, like this disease. So you can be as
mm,
careful as you can, but uh, there's always risk of cross contamination. So
mm,
you know, and it's not just their lives that they're putting on the line, but also it's their families because you know
mm,
you go back home, you're bound to come in contact with your family members. There's no way to avoid that. So I think thinking about all those things, you know, obviously uh, it's a great profession, but it does come with its risks as well.
of course. It's funny. I never really, you know, how I guess when I first started training as a nurse, I never really thought about the risks associated with my job until the pandemic. I don't know if that
Mm.
was the same with you, Jason.
I probably didn't expect it to that degree. I mean, I think
Yeah.
coronavirus is still not the worst disease
Mm,
to
mm, mm.
catch. Um,
Yeah.
I'll be very scared if it was Ebola. I would
Oh.
be I would be scared shitless if it was Ebola. Um,
Mm, mm,
so I'm glad that that's not what we're dealing with.
mm.
So yeah, I think we still have to be thankful from that regard. But yeah, you're right. I think the only thing I thought about was possibly getting sick with like colds and flus, but
Mm, mm, mm,
never
mm.
really thought about all the other diseases that we could potentially catch. I mean,
Yeah.
I did catch gastro a few times, but I
Mm,
think gastro and a couple of like flu and colds. I think that's probably the
yeah.
worst things I've caught. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I can say the same thing, man. Definitely the cold and flu during winter, you know, when you have
Mm.
patients coughing at your face and
Oh yeah.
you weren't wearing a mask.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, before pre-pandemic era, when no one cared about hygiene
Oh,
and washing hands and and
yeah,
wearing
yeah.
masks, it's actually gotten better because of that. Like because of the whole pandemic situation, catching other viruses. I'm actually like not catching other viruses as well, which is helping
Mm,
because
mm.
everyone's
Yeah,
so adherent to the rules now, which is very good. Um, so yeah, I've noticed I haven't gotten sick in a while, so that's good.
oh, that's good, man. That's good. All right, I'll just quickly move on. Uh, has Has there been appropriate communication to you and your family about ways for you to move forward and live out a normal life during this pandemic?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I guess my interpretation of normal is this is the new normal.
Mm, mm,
I don't think we will be going back to the way we were anytime soon.
mm,
Um,
mm, mm.
even if a vaccine comes out next year, uh,
Yeah.
then not everyone's going to get inoculated within a year. Um, and if
No.
there's any adverse effects that come from the vaccination, it's going to delay things even more. Um,
Mm,
you know, you have to think of manufacturing. If the
mm,
vaccine is not produced in Australia, it's going to be very hard to acquire it because all the other countries are probably going to buy it out before we even get to it. So with those things in mind, I think this is going to be the new normal. So it's all about just managing the cases. I don't think we can ever eliminate corona from the community, especially given what happened to New Zealand as well. And
Yeah.
we're still getting patients in from overseas, and all it takes is for one patient to be a super spreader of some sort. It's gonna be back on the radar. So I guess from my perspective, I guess this is the new normal. I think we have to live by whatever the regulations are and what the suggestions are. Otherwise, we might end up like Melbourne, into a second lockdown, which is not ideal for anyone and for businesses included and for the economy. So we just have to do our best, I guess.
And it's interesting that you say the new normal, because I guess that's the the slogan for people today. I think it's there's a general consensus among the population that this is how things are going to be from now on for the foreseeable future.
Yeah,
but
I
it's
think
interesting.
you can't. I think you can't
Sorry,
dwell on the fact that I don't think you should look back on the past and say, let's hope that it gets to this stage again, because you don't know what's going to happen into the future. And obviously, no one predicted this was going to happen. So it's learning about how to deal with this as the way forward and trying to adapt as best that we can. If you look back 200 years or 300 years, life was completely different, and it's all about adaptation and growth and seeing how things progress and changing according to those according to like the environment or whatever's happening at the time. I mean, that's what we do as people. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. All right, next question. In your opinion, do you think there's an area of people that is being overlooked?
And like a population group that might be overlooked during this
Yeah,
whole
like
thing.
a population group, or yeah, we'll go with population group. A population group, or people working in a certain industry. Yeah, very much just your opinion.
I mean, I think it's good that we live in Australia. I think the Australian government has done pretty well in supporting relevant industries and having the economic support for businesses and for those who don't have a job, comparatively to some other countries.
Yeah.
And even from a mental health perspective, I do know that they've released more access to certain psychological visits, especially for people living in Melbourne as a result of this pandemic. I don't necessarily think, in my personal opinion, that there's a group that might be overlooked. I think we've done pretty well. It's all a balancing act, in my opinion. Like you can't just give out free money to everyone. So it's all about drawing a balance between what's necessary and what can be done without, and also considering the future implications of those actions. Because every action is going to have a reaction, so you have to consider those. So I'm glad I'm not a politician or a policymaker, because that is very difficult.
Oh, definitely.
Like, where do you draw the line?
I completely agree. I can't imagine putting myself in the mindset of a politician and trying to appease everyone. I was just wanting your thoughts on this, Jason. what are your thoughts on, I guess, the government's response to international students? I know that I guess when lockdowns started happening, Scott Morrison was said something along the lines of, if to international students, if you're not able to support yourself here in Australia, then it might be time for you to go home. I know that everyone in Australia, a lot of people would have different opinions on that, but what would be your opinion on that?
I think I think that's a tough one because
Mm,
um, like it comes back to the question of where you draw the line at the end of the day.
yeah. Mm,
I understand if they were citizens and even I think
yeah.
permanent residents um, to a degree get some kind of support. So
Yeah, of course.
to include international students into that group is going to be very difficult. But then you could argue that they
Mm,
are the backbone of a segment of Australia's economy, uh,
yeah.
given the fact that they come here for their education, they spend
Mm,
money uh,
mm,
for food, rent, and things like that. Um, I don't know, to be honest. I think, yeah, I really don't know what the best answer is to that.
yeah, of course.
I don't know whether the Australian government has done the right thing or not. Um,
Mm,
whether they should have offered more support. Um, yeah,
mm,
I'm not too sure. Yeah, I'm not too sure.
yeah. Um, I, I'd have to say, say similar to you, Jason, because I feel like the government is already doing so much for its citizens and its permanent residents, and helping international students, would make the government go more in debt. But then, they do contribute a large part to our economy. I think I heard that international students pay about 3 times more the fees compared to domestic students. So yeah, it's a very, very big gray area. Very big gray area.
Yeah, yeah, you're definitely right. Yeah, you have to please both sides, and if you start giving handouts to people that are non-citizens, there's some of the citizens are gonna complain and say they're not getting enough, and yeah,
Mm,
it's very gray area, very tough to make
yeah.
I think judgment on that.
Mm. Guess I'm glad we're not politicians.
Yes, yes, I am. Yeah, I'll never get into politics for that reason.
All right, so I guess we wanted to end this interview on a good note. What are you've already discussed some of these points, but I guess if there's anything more that you can add, what are some positives that you've seen come out of the pandemic, Jason?
Um, some positives, I think, the evolution of technology and certain
Hmm.
technological advancements. I think it's pushed
Hmm.
things forward a lot faster than what
Hmm.
we were anticipating.
Yeah.
So like online teaching, online consultations, um, I guess just improving the efficiency of certain processes. Yeah,
All
there's
right.
always new things coming out, new research being done. So always got to
Mm.
keep up to date.
Yeah. No, I agree. Anyway, I guess that's the end of the interview. Thank you so much, Jason, for your time. Hey, everyone. So you've reached the end of the interview. Jason would also like to add that other positives that came out of the pandemic include more family time, as well as more investment opportunity. I'd just like to say a huge thank you to Jason again for allowing me to interview him. If you've enjoyed this interview, feel free to hit that like button and tune in next week for our next COVID story interview. Bye, guys.